Hello and welcome back to Cosumnes River College and our CRC Music in the Studio series. This week we're super excited to welcome some local favorites and friends of mine, Carlos and Brennan, a fantastic duo. I'm joined by my colleague Maxwell Kiesner, professor of instrumental music here at CRC. And behind the scenes is, of course, Gabriel Rivera, our instructional assistant for the music department, who is making all of the things happen behind the green curtain. So at any rate, we're super excited to have these two come and be a part of us. They are working with our students throughout the semester, and they have shown themselves to be rather uh, versatile artists who sort of pave a way for themselves in ways that I think are inspiring for our students. Max, you're welcome to uh, jump in any time. We were thinking about putting the series together and thinking about how we could really impress upon our students so many different pathways to creating careers. And these were definitely a duo that came up.
Yeah, absolutely. Carlos and Brennan came to my attention, I don't know, so many years ago. I think we were playing in uh, Golden State Concert Band or something together. I can't remember exactly, but got to know these individuals just through some random gigs in town, and then eventually got a chance to bring them out to the high school I was teaching at, Rio Americano, and featured them not only in their duo arrangement but as soloists with our concert band there. And they did this presentation about stage fright, and they are working on a presentation which involves literature from composers of color. And I think it's just a really interesting mix of approaches that they take. As you're saying, there's so many different ways that you can carve out your niche and your career, in this music industry. And I think they've taken a really fantastic approach, and something that kind of takes advantage of all of their abilities and some very much needed holes in the market, so to speak. So
Absolutely. No, it's great. I'll probably say this later too, but I knew Brennan when I started teaching at Sac State. He played in a little orchestra my first year there for the operas that we were doing, and it was really great energy, and to see the growth and changing and shifting over the years has been really exciting. And so we're super happy to have them and work with them. Of course, there's information. We'll share this website again, but if you want to know more about them as we are engaging them now, or if you want to go later, you want to find them at carlosandbrennan.com to get all kinds of information about them, what they're doing, where they've been, what's on the horizon. And of course, this semester we've invited them to not only be guests for you today, but also to engage with our students. And so they're going to work with the instrumental ensemble and actually some choral vocalists as well over time, but definitely December 11th, they've got at least, I believe, Maxim Mozart they're going to help present on that date. Is that correct?
yeah, that's right. We've got an arrangement by Carlos of the Mozart Piano Concerto number 23, um, the Adagio, and it's uh, it's going really well. We've started recording it, and Mozart's always very difficult to perform, but his arrangement is really good, and tailor made to our ensemble as well. So it's really fun to have the composer there with us, and write something for our ensemble, which is maybe a little different than a normal ensemble would be, of course, given our situation. Enrollment's a bit different than we would normally expect. So,
Yeah. That's
but
great.
we're yeah.
It's great. It's because it's the idea is that we get to make it however we want to. We get to sort of create whole new experiences. And so, without further ado, I would love to invite to the screen Carlos and Brennan, if you would please join us. And I can get away from this. Maybe you can unshare us, Gabriel, so we can get back to all of our big faces all over the screen. Great. Awesome. Welcome, guys. It's great to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good
Oh, well, thank you so
afternoon.
much for the invitation.
Yes, and for
Absolutely.
that lovely introduction as well.
Indeed.
Of course. We're
Indeed.
super
Indeed.
glad to have you. I know, Brennan, like I said, I met you years and years ago now. Boy, it was a while now. And you were at Sac State as a student there. And who were you studying with there?
I think you came in what,
Well,
2013, 2012. Okay, yeah,
well,
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
13. Yeah, it was about 13 when we met, actually. Yeah.
yeah. So that time, I think had already started studying with Sandra McPherson,
Hmm.
but Deborah Pittman was there for my very first semester.
That's correct.
You're right, 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 right. So I think I was studying with Sandra though when I met you.
Wonderful. Yes, Sandra works with our students here at CRC as well. So we're
Yeah,
really
yes, I'm
excited
aware.
that we have that connection. It's really great.
Yeah, she has one of my former students, actually, one of my very first students that I had when I came to Sac State.
Great, great, great. And so I've known you for that period of time. And then some years later, Carlos appeared. And Carlos, where did you come from? And how did you get here? And all of that.
Well, I grew up in North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina from the time I was in second grade through high school, and then I enrolled at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. So I finished my undergraduate in 2011 from UNCG with a major in music composition with a focus in piano performance. And then I was sort of freelancing as a musician for a little while. But my father is an AME pastor, and he was assigned a new congregation out here in California, at the time in San Francisco. So me, as a freshly graduated musician, saw an opportunity to move to California and to create a new life for myself and really build a career for myself, and that's exactly what I did. So I relocated first to San Francisco for a year, and then relocated here the following year. And so I've been in Sacramento since that time, and things have been going really, really well. I've been really welcomed by the city and had a lot of incredible opportunities. And certainly one of the first incredible people I met was Brennan, who was looking for a pianist to collaborate on this project that he had been sort of dreaming about, being able to perform as a clarinetist and now woodwind instrumentalist in a multitude of different genres and different stages and different sort of settings. And that's exactly what we did.
I love this.
Yeah, it was great.
I'm happy for our students to hear what you just said because it was sort of like, I'll go to this city, I'll try something new. Sure, you needed someone to collaborate with, I'll collaborate with you. And
Exactly.
and then, a little Carnegie Hall later, and you're like, okay.
Really, truly though, that is the one of the single greatest pieces of advice I can give a student at this point is to collaborate, work with other musicians, and don't say no. Like, say if you can take the gig, take the gig. If it's something that you can do, take it. And if you absolutely can't do it, then don't feel bad about saying no. They'll find somebody else to do it as well. But be comfortable being outside of your comfort zone and trying new things. That's the route to becoming, if you want to become a soloist and perform with orchestras and all of those sorts of things, you can do that, but that's not an everyday gig. That's not necessarily a gig that you do every single day. So you want to be able to continue to live and work in a way that satisfies you and feeds your soul. And working with Brennan has been incredible because he is truly just a world-class musician, top of his game, incredible at the things that he does. And it allows me to really dig deep. All right, well, we got to do this. We're going to do this Messiaen piece, so let's gotta practice, make it happen.
Yeah, just a little messiaen, just a little. I mean, my goodness, that's no easy feat. Wonderful. So I know you have a program for us today of various things. We're going to talk in and out of some of the music, but could you invite us into that? Like, what did you bring for us to hear and to discuss today in terms of your journey, the music you wanted to cover? What are we listening to? Where are we going?
Sure. Oh, do you go ahead, Brennan, if you want to start?
Well, I was gonna reference what Maxwell said earlier about our journey into chamber music by African American composers. We definitely have presented a little bit of that music here for you today, and we've included ourselves in that mix, and that's something that I'm quite proud of because Carlos is such a very talented composer in his own right. He inspired me to try my hand at it, and so we wrote a couple of pieces, and he had a great piece of music already that we included on our latest recording, and also presented some music by William Grant Steele, and later on, we hope to bring you some music by Margaret Bonds as well.
Yeah, we were really hoping to present some of that today, but just the limitations of not really being able to rehearse in person has just made things
Right.
difficult to try to coordinate a really satisfying performance for you. So today we're going to start with a recording from our last recording project, which is called Poets of Note. And this is a composition by the composer Quincy Hilliard, who is an African American composer, currently living and working. He is a Grammy nominated composer from this composition, which is called Coty, which was featured on a recording by all African American composers for clarinet and piano. And Brennan will be happy, I'm sure, to tell you a little bit more about that when we get to the next piece on the program. So this is a piece called Coty for clarinet, piano, and three movements. And yeah, we hope you enjoy.
Thank Awesome.
Beautiful.
Thank
Like
you.
I said, we have to get our applause effect going here for this something in the background. Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I feel like I don't know where you performed that. Was that a live performance or was that a studio performance or um, I feel like I
Of
heard.
that particular recording,
Yeah,
that particular recording was a studio recording type deal.
gotcha.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
feel
But
like
we have performed it. We performed it in a few different places, though.
yeah, okay. I feel
That's
like
that's
maybe it would have
very
been
very
at Crocker.
solidly in our repertoire. What was that?
Was that Crocker? Did you guys do it at Crocker recently? Maybe a year or two ago?
Did we
Maybe
do?
we did do that at Crocker.
I remember the first movement. I was like, I
Um,
know this. I've heard. I'm
I
maybe.
want to say we did do this at Crocker for because that's the same year we went to Las Vegas.
What was in Las
we've
Vegas?
done so many things. It's hard for me to remember. Honestly, it's a
So the
good
year we
problem
went
to
to Las
have. I'm sitting
Vegas,
here like,
right?
I
Okay.
don't even remember.
So the year we went to Las Vegas, we were actually chosen as lecturers and presenters for the National Association for Negro Musicians,
Hmm,
and that's one of the first places we gave our uh, performance anxiety lecture recital.
yes.
Yeah,
And
and I want
then
to say that part of the strategy was to use the Crocker as the rehearsal performance or the other way around. I forget. I forget which one it
This is a
was.
wonderful problem to have where you have so many gigs lined up that you have to start using one great event as a warm up for the next
Right, for
great
the
thing
next great
you're going
event.
to
Yeah.
do because you don't have enough time in between to
To
like
really get
to
practice
do other
performances
things.
in. Right,
Yeah.
right.
so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, I don't know if you planned on talking about this, but NAM, or where you went,
Hmm.
National Association of Negro Musicians, is a very old organization. It's been around for a long time.
Yes.
Um,
Indeed.
and we've discussed it. I know you and I, Brennan, at least, have discussed that organization, its importance, the connections and things that are possible there. But can you tell us a little bit about that organization, having been there to speak and perform? What is it? Is it like any other organizations you can imagine? What's an importance of belonging to or being a part of an organization like that?
It was not really like any other organization that I'd ever seen. Um, it was from what I gathered from being with the musicians was that it was basically a networking organization, and so many things happen at these events. And I use networking like, broad strokes, right? I mean, because it's just so much there. You get together with musicians and you hear them perform, right? And then you get ideas about what you want. And then they have this scholarship competition, which was an excellent thing. They do give scholarships, right? So another to aspiring college students, I think, going into an undergraduate program. So these are like talented people, I think, going into college. I mean, I was blown away at the scholarship competition that I saw. I mean, highly skilled, young black people, and I was like, yes, I was like, wish I could play the flute like that, And so you
And now
meet
he does.
people. Well, we're getting there. You exchange numbers for future projects, right? And all kinds of things.
And you
Yeah,
get to be
yeah,
in
Yeah.
yeah,
Las
yeah.
Vegas. So you get to be in a distant
Right.
place. You were, it's a
Right, and
country.
it's a different location, every time they get together,
Right. There are lots
Right.
of
which I think is
professional
excellent.
organizations like that. For our students who are
Right.
watching, and depending on if you're a singer or an instrumentalist, there are all kinds of things. Conductors. There are very specialized programs as well as broad programs. National Association of Teachers of Singing, classical singer. I'm a singer. For
Yeah.
Yes.
These
Yes.
are the organizations I
Yes.
know. ACDA, American Choral Directors Association. There's all kinds of different things like that. So the idea of networking and learning about other talents around you, hearing new music, and lectures like the ones you presented are really
Exactly.
I would
I
say
would
what
say
makes
almost like a
NAM.
trade
Oh, go
show.
ahead.
No.
I was just gonna say what one of the things that makes NAM really special, or the thing that makes NAM special, is its emphasis on the preservation and promotion of the music of African American musicians, which is definitely an area of musical history that tends to get skirted over. The typical textbook, at least from the time that I was in school, will cover music history through the ages, and maybe you will only find mention of composers like Scott Joplin, or you'll find mention of African American composers under the guise of jazz and their contributions in these other art forms, which are all wonderful narratives and important things too. But there's this whole just pantheon of incredible African American musicians and composers who paved the way for so many musicians to come before them, or to come after them, excuse me. And they are not discussed. Even amongst African American musicians, people don't know who Margaret Bonds is, or don't know who William Grant Still is, don't know who any of the, Adolphus Hailstork, people who are alive now creating music today. And there's really no reason for that anymore. I mean, not that there ever was a valid reason for that, but there's certainly no reason now why we can't explore these legacies, because it's not going to do any harm. I always joke about this when my other hat with the Sacramento Community Concert Association, that Beethoven and Mozart and Mendelssohn, they're not gonna mind if we program some other people on their concert. Like they're okay. They're not really like struggling to worry about their legacy or their contributions in the field. Like they're gonna be all right, right? We can take a minute and lift up somebody like a Margaret Bonds or a Florence Price, or somebody who is not talked about as often, but whose music is every bit as incredible and captivating and wonderful.
Yes, I see some
Not to
people
mention relevant.
raising their hands.
Yes.
There, there is a Q&A thing. I don't know how to respond to raised hands, honestly. But if you use on this
I don't
webinar, I
either.
don't know how to do it. But
I
on
don't either.
if you use the Q&A, put your questions there, and toward the end of the program, we'll be able to get to some of your questions. Okay, so please, please, please do put your questions in there. Maybe you accidentally pressed raise hand. I'm not sure, but at any rate, we want to engage with you, so please do put your information down there. It's such a good time for this conversation. We're talking about women
Yes.
composers. We're talking about Asian composers. We're talking about people in the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, right?
Yeah,
Throughout
absolutely.
the arts, but in music particularly. And since this is such a zeitgeist moment for African American conversation, it seems so right that that we have this program today to really sort of um, look at this music in depth and find out what's possible for our audiences and for us as performers. I hope that at some point,
Yeah.
as you're playing this music and sharing this music, that you'll address one of the um, elephants in the room, as it were, as it comes to the execution of African American music. Quite often, people say, "Oh, that's black music. I can't perform that." Or
I have to say something about that. I'm sorry. But that is something that I recently had a conversation with one of my very best friends who is an incredible operatic, classically trained tenor, pedagogue, incredible musician who happens to be white. And he listen, you know, he adores this music by so many African American composers, and he's come to me very, you know, earnestly and just been like, you know, I've been giving a lot of thought to this issue. Like, I really want to perform some of these works, and I want to be able to lift them up and be able to share just how incredible this stuff is with my audience, but I'm a little concerned about the optics of the situation, about being a white musician performing music by black composers. And I told him, I was like, first off, put all of that in bed, because you do not have to worry about that. I think the only thing that you might want to be, the only thing, and this is even debatable, this is just my opinion, the only thing you may want to be considerate of in the course of performing a black piece is text. Right? If you have a text that you know, there's some poetry where you're talking about my dark skin and, you know, the implications of that, I'm like, that it kind of gets lost in translation when it's a white performer doing it. It's just because, any more than if I got on the stage and sang a big song about being a lonely woman at home, you know, that might be kind of like,
right,
I
yeah,
hear what you're trying to do. Like, the intent is good, the artistry is beautiful, but I'm just kind of not connecting with this piece because the message doesn't make sense.
yeah,
And that's also up for debate. I mean, arguably, you could
yes,
say the darkness
absolutely,
is within. I don't know. That's,
right, right.
but I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
But that is
I don't
it.
have
But
the answers.
you're right. Isn't that it though? It's the conversation. The fact that people are having
Yes.
conversations. We have a wonderful person who contributed as a teacher. You all know Lee Hoffman. Lee Hoffman,
Yes.
fantastic soprano. I met Lee because she did a program of all African American composers. She came to town to do it,
He
and
is
I
so
said,
awesome.
"Who is this woman? She is incredible." And she
Absolutely
sang
incredible.
this incredible program. Actually, Lee sang on our first Raise Your Voice. She presented a song for us here on our open mic. And it was an incredible, moving performance. And I was grateful because there were some things that I hadn't heard. And she introduced this incredible program to the audience here in Sacramento. So, yeah, it's a wonderful, I love what you said because, yeah, it's really about your connection. You have to have some kind of connection as an artist would to the art that they're doing.
Correct.
Yeah, awesome.
Hmm.
Great. We could talk for hours and hours as we have done offline. Um, can
Yes.
we hear some more of your music? Can you tell us more about what it is you do and what's being said?
Of course. The next piece we have lined up is The Romance by William Grant Still. And I'd like to turn it over to Brennan because I know he has a lot of information about our process with this piece and what we're getting ready to listen to. So, Brennan.
So this piece of music, for so many different reasons, has such a very special place in my heart. The way we came across it, the way we came across the sheet music special performance I gave earlier this year in Memphis, Tennessee. So, firstly, like Carlos said earlier, so little has been said about the music of African American composers. So much so that I knew very little about music written specifically for the clarinet and piano, right, by African American composers, right. And I even say I get a little embarrassed about that, right, because I'm a brown man, right, and I went to a school, right, that was mostly brown people, and so. And many of my musical instructors, were brown people, and I had no idea what this music was, where it was, if it existed, and so I went on a little journey and did a little bit of research. I came across a recording by a clarinetist, a fabulous clarinetist, African American man, um, by the name of Marcus Ely. And I reached out to him because so much of the music was just so very gorgeous. And this piece of music was on the recording. And I asked him, I said, where did you get this music? And he said, I did research. And much of the music for clarinet and piano that he featured on the CD was arrangements that he himself, I later found out, and had created because I don't think there was really a lot of music written specifically for the clarinet and piano by African American composers. I think mainly because chamber music in general, the end of the 19th century, 20th century wasn't, I don't know, maybe a whole lot of the mainstream. But this particular piece, he said, I said, asking about this particular piece of music, where can I get a copy? Romance by William Grant Still. And he says, well, that's one of the ones that I arranged myself. I said, oh, wow, that's such an excellent arrangement. And so I asked him, I said, where can I get a copy? And he was like, well, I'll just send you a copy. And I was like, oh. And I said, well, how can I compensate you for your work and the privilege of being able to perform this music in public, etc. He says, don't worry about it. It's just a great thing. I'm paraphrasing at this point, to be able to get the music out. He says, and he said, you just hope that we enjoyed performing it and as much as he had. And I just was so um, grateful at that moment that another artist, was willing to help me in such a way. Because I, even in making arrangements of simple things that I've done around town for the Crocker and other things, and that's a lot of work. I mean, really taking a piece of music and, transposing it. And then if it's
Tell me about it.
not quite, right with the octaves, then you have to make all kinds of artistic choices on where to put these notes. And I mean, and so I was just so grateful that a musician was willing to just give me, his work for my enjoyment, and for my game, obviously. I mean, of course it lifts us all, but some time goes by and we performed it, we love it. We love it. We love it. I began to really focus on flute because I teach flute, clarinet, and saxophone in a couple of different places. And I felt like I knew a lot about the clarinet. I mean, I'd studied it for 15 years, and I knew a little bit about the saxophone because I'd studied it almost alongside the clarinet, but I didn't know much about the flute. So I said, let me get in here and really dig in and understand a little bit more about this flute. And so in doing that, I just was like, kind of just stretch my legs a little bit with this flute. And so I pulled up this score of the William Grant Still and realized it was just a C score. So I was like, oh well, let's just see how this kind of sounds, with the flute, without the, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. This is just so good. And so I did change the octaves around and kind of rearranged it, if you will, for the flute and the piano. And that's actually what you're going to hear in just a moment. A lovely track laid down by Carlos Fuentes and his fantastic piano playing and me playing the flute right here in my studio.
So this is a socially distanced presentation of
It is
the
a
William
socially
Grant
distanced.
Still.
I miss my friend.
I know, I miss you too. We'll get together again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's take a listen.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Thank
Lovely.
you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very, very much. That was really lovely.
So yeah, my special performance. I lost my grandmother this year, and so I traveled to Memphis and played that on the flute for the memorial service. Yeah. So like I said, this piece just, I mean, it just means so much to me, and it was great to get a chance to play a piece of music written by an African American. At my grandmother's music, because she was one of the people to really introduce me to music. And she used to tell me when I was a baby, she would be in there cooking or something, and she'd play her jazz music. She loved jazz, and so she'd sit me on the counter, and wow, and she's like, moved to the music and stuff. So yeah, and we over the years we'd have great conversations about music and life, and till this day she swear Beyonce can't sing. So, and I'm talking about, I'm talking, and I'm talking about, I go through this
Ouch.
whole thing about her voice control, the lovely tone of her voice, the style. Nope, she's hearing none of it. She's hearing none of it. No. So I just said, you know what, Grandma, you have that, and I love you anyway. Yeah,
Generations. I love it. Well,
indeed. Thank you for listening.
absolutely. Still was a very important composer, African American
Indeed.
composer, of many firsts as an African American composer. The Dean
Hmm.
of African American
Mm,
composers is his
mhm.
nickname, right? Or an honorific title, unofficial title, yeah. So
Indeed.
a lot of really wonderful work. He's one of those composers who I find troublesome in that not every work that he did was like quote unquote perfect in my ears,
Mhm.
but it was one of those things where I feel like if it was performed more and people engaged it more,
That part.
he might learn more about how to interpret it, or he might be engaged, or someone might help bring it up. It's one of those things. I feel like
Yes.
there's so much mediocre stuff out there. We go, this guy wrote some beautiful melodies.
The
That-
the
in fact, Carlos, you introduced that what Kentuck?
Yeah, Kentuck, which
I
is
never heard.
Kentucky. It's like a little miniature concert piece for piano and orchestra that's about Kentucky. He called it Kentuck, and it was just this incredible, like Debussy impressionist. Like you really get his impressionist side in that work, as far as just the colors and the way that he uses the orchestration to create these like really shimmering sort of textures as the piece progresses. Never heard it before. Just happened to stumble upon one of the YouTube
Oh,
channels that I'm subscribed to. Somebody had uploaded it with the score, and I was like, "What is this incredible piece of music that nobody's ever heard of?" And there's
it should be
so much
performed
music
all
out there
the time.
like
It's
that,
amazing.
you know?
Yeah, it's amazing. It should be performed all the time. And
I want to play
if
it.
you do piano, well, there you go, right? You guys are championing this work. Like that's a piece that I could see on a program every season. No reason why it wouldn't.
And
Um,
and let me just also say this. I like no shade again to Beethoven, but part of the reason why Beethoven is because his music has been so performed, so scrutinized, so deeply analyzed and understood that now we have this sort of established way that Beethoven is supposed to be played, and you can deviate from that and yada yada yada. But it took many performers, many years, and many different interpretations and ways of doing it before somebody, collectively, the musical community was able to say that's not really how Beethoven's supposed to be played. That's how it is. If we only had one recording of Beethoven's Sonata number 32, for example, that existed, quite frankly, a lot of people would probably listen to that and be like, this is trash. Like, what kind of composer is
well,
this?
that's what
This
they
piece
used
is
to do.
strange and makes no sense.
That's literally what they did with Mozart for the longest time. It was heavy. It was played with like way too many instruments and way major vibrato and all that kind of Bach, all that stuff. Until someone
Yeah.
said, I've studied this, and by the way, that's not how it would. These are the wrong instruments, yada yada. They learned how to interpret it. So you're right. How do we do that? Or I'm not going to say how do we. How does Carlos and Brennan take care of that and move our audiences to better understand this work, not just of course, William Grant Still, but other works that you're
Well,
presenting and working on.
We play it.
to
That's the first thing.
continue on, right? To continue on with what Carlos was saying, so much of what we think we know about these composers is really just getting out there and playing it, right? And I tell people all the time, one of the reasons why, and I just use my own experience with 20th century music. When I first went to university as an undergraduate, like I wanted nothing to do with anything written after about, I don't know, 1850, right?
Me too at
And part
first.
of that,
Yeah.
right, and part of that was just my experience. just listening to, and I've always been a big, classical music, fan. It's always been something that I've, gone to in times where I wanted entertainment. I go to the, symphony concerts, so I'm pretty well versed in, the classics and the, the modern canon and all that stuff, and I just have not been engaged much with music past Debussy and Rachmaninoff and all of these guys,
Yeah.
but the more I listen to it, right, and the more I try to really understand the point of view of artists that came after them, then I started to
Yeah.
kind of listen with different ears, right, and think that, and especially when you think about art in general, adjacent to music, right? A lot of the different artistic trends coming out of Paris and, New York City, the turn of the 20th century, which is really going in a different aesthetic, and I really kind of wanted to get into that. I really kind of wanted to see and hear more of what that was. And so I think we absolutely should be doing the same thing with uh, all kinds of music from underrepresented groups, right? I mean, just listening to it,
Yes.
Mhm.
right? And then listening to it for what it is, right? Instead of trying to, you know, get into the mindset of, comparing it to something that was a year, 200 years ago. I don't think that's fair. I think what is absolutely important is that we just simply give people a listen, right? And hear it for what it is, to repeat a phrase.
Yeah.
And the irony of that is that composers at the turn of the century, a lot of them were really interested in doing exactly the kinds of things that you are talking about. Now they've sort of become canonized and sanitized. Ravel, for example, towards the end of Ravel's life, he and Gershwin became very good friends. They exchanged a lot of really interesting ideas. Gershwin was captivated by this impressionist world, this little, Swiss watch perfection that Ravel created in his pieces. And Ravel loved the whole idea of jazz, like the whole idea of improvisation and creating these blues sounding things, and then took those ideas wholesale and wrote two piano concerti and wrote, all this incredible music he wrote a blues for violin and piano at the very end of his life. Nobody talks about that. We're just stuck on Bolero and, whatever. But
You're right. No, I'm a Darius Milhaud fan. So, and I love because Milhaud is like
another one, yeah.
all over the place. I'm like, spend a little time in South America, and then I'm like, it's jazz, it's quote unquote jazz, the jazz.
Right.
Yeah.
I call it the jazz, and then it's got all kinds of other stuff in there, but it's those experiences and engaging with it. The notion is that cultures are defined from within. So when we look at them, we can't make the comparisons not honestly and expect to understand what it is. We have to go and get into it. So
Right.
engaging this music the way you all are doing suggests that we're going to come to a new understanding and perhaps elevate sounds that we maybe not wouldn't have valued over in this other platform. So it's really great to
Real
hear.
quick interjection about Ravel. I'll just say this also because I'm just kind of on a Ravel kick right now. We don't often talk about the fact that he had a whole lot of Spanish blood in him as well. We kind of just put him on the French pedestal and call him a French composer, but really there's a whole lot of Spanish influence happening in there as well. So just saying.
Well, in really trying to give myself more freedom as a performer, with my piece of music, if anyone should ever want to give a performance, I'm not going to be the composer that's like, giving you all these strict, instructions and what have you, because I've started to understand music more as an art form that's happening in the moment,
Mm,
right? And us being able to live with whatever it is in the moment, right? And so I feel like that also gives me a freedom to, to play others' music, with, much more freedom, whether that's actually true, I don't know. And at some instance, I don't really care, but
Correct.
I think that, the more we simply engage with it on its terms, right, and not try and put it into a category, I think the better off the art form will be. I think the better off we will be as artists. And
yeah.
we certainly hope that people enjoy our approach.
Well, I want to hear some of your music. I know you've got some more of the things you want
Speaking
to play
of,
for us, but can we hear some of your compositions? And while we're listening to your compositions, I pose a question. Max, I developed my own question for this series, and hopefully, I want you to come up with a question too. I don't know if this is the same one, but my question for in the studio is for guests is what do you wish you had learned, or what kind of course or work or study do you wish you would have had in college when you were studying? So a lot of our students are watching now, and they're like, well, I wish I had like, a nail painting class, as I don't know, whatever it is. But if you have an idea of what, in terms of your musical development, your professional development, getting you where you are, or even a diversion from any of that, what do you wish? You will mull this over while we're listening to your composition,
oh Lord.
but you know what I mean? And so we can have a quick little discussion about that for our students to sort of seek and find things.
Let me unroll the scroll.
What are we listening to? What are we about to listen to of yours?
So the first of our compositions is a composition by Brennan. So I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about his composition, his first composition.
Ooh, first
So I really wanted to kind of step away from like traditional like three-part triadic harmony and try this thing with fourths as much as I really could. And I think it came out okay. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the process, certainly enjoyed the process. I enjoy performing it too, so we're out of whatever that's worth. Um, and the title is Day 12,268.
468, yeah.
I forget what the number is now. It's a few more clicks that went by since I wrote this thing, which is crazy in and of itself. That was the number of days old I was when I finally put the bow on it, and was like, this is what I was doing on this day of my life. I think about life and my mortality often, so I try and do as much as I can with every moment. So I just kind of keep reminding myself, make the art. Maybe you'll feel better. So yes, day 12,000, I think 468.
Mhm.
Great. Let's take a listen.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
What a piece, Brennan. Man.
Yeah, yeah, it was really kind of funny, and it's kind of like one of those weird, like, oopsie moments because I was really trying to
What?
to do some harmony closer to
Oops,
what
wrote a
Hindemith
piece.
did in his clarinet sonata, and it turns out this was nothing like what he had done. When I went back and listened to, because I hadn't heard it in a while, and I was kind of trying not to listen to it because I didn't really want to, necessarily copy anything. I mean, mission accomplished because I went back and listened. I was like, this is nothing like what I thought this harmony. What? Okay,
I
but I
really
mean,
like
I like it.
this descending passage, yeah, ba bo bo be do do bo, and then interplay with the piano during the fourths and ascending, and they're kind of like missing one another and then echoing one another.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very
Yeah, yeah, and actually I like that little wandering part at the beginning. I turned out to like it a little bit better because I mean, it's written the way it's written, and but it's always like you said, again, it's always kind of like you kind of missing each other a little bit. We kind of meet together. Yeah, so I always thought that was really kind of cool. Like I
cool.
said, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Absolutely. Great. We're getting a lot of really wonderful moments. Kurt Erickson is our professor of theory and composition here. He's in attendance out there somewhere in Zoom land, and he's really enjoying it as well. Some clever Poulenc-like passages that he says, and I love me some Poulenc. Oh my gosh.
Me
I
too.
know, my God, like the flute sonata, I just have been dying about last year or so.
Gorgeous, gorgeous, wonderful. Thank you. Well, great. I would love to hear some more of your compositions. Carlos, I believe it is your turn to share a piece as well. What are we
Yes.
about to listen to of yours?
So we're going to listen to a composition called Crash and Burn, which has a very sort of interesting genesis. Um, when I was an undergraduate, we, being the composition studio, UNCG has a performance requirement for all of its music students. Even if you're a composer, you still have to participate in some kind of a performance ensemble. So a lot of people join choir, a lot of people join band. If they were good enough, they'd get in the orchestra, that sort of thing, you know. But the composition professors thought it would be a nice idea to create an ensemble for composers of performers. I mean, of composers. And it could be other performers as well, which was great in theory, but the first year that it happened, we ended up with like 5 keyboard players and like somebody with like a melodica and like just, like just random instruments all just put together in a room. And then it's like, all right, compose a piece for this ensemble. And you're like, I don't know what to do. So I composed this work, Crash and Burn, which was originally conceived of as a saxophone concerto, an alto saxophone concerto. And the piece turned out pretty well. I was really happy with how it turned out. It's supposed to be one movement, but sort of in 3 parts to sort of allude to the traditional concerto model of having a, fast, slow, fast movement. And yes, so the title is somewhat autobiographical as far as a chapter of my life that I was going through, which was not so pleasant, but it is what it is, and I have this beautiful composition to show for it. This version is, of course, presented as a sort of clarinet concerto, which Brennan just masterfully learned like it was nothing, like it was just all like written for him. And then, of course, there's a piano reduction. The work, I think, kind of speaks for itself in that regard as far as the final form. But yeah, this is Crash and Burn.
Yay! Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for listening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. We got some good comments again. Kurt is encouraging you, Professor Erickson is encouraging you to keep working together this with this unique sort of experience of composer performers, which he mentioned earlier, is such an important aspect of our tradition, right? As musicians, artists, we for some reason we kind of, especially in classical music, kind of tend to think, you perform other people's work and that's it. And we talked about Poulenc before, and it's like he was at the keys playing his music with
Yeah.
whoever he wanted to work with, right? And those became these kind of iconic performances, our best understanding of the performance. And they'll tell you, I'm not the greatest at playing my own music. They'll tell you,
Right. Composers always say
play it,
that.
right? Yeah, but at least but they get to be in it to give you at least some kind of emphasis. When I listen to you guys play, I can tell where the emphasis is supposed to be. I can tell which parts are supposed to come out. You know that, it's part of you. So that's really, really important, an important aspect of the traditions of particularly classical music. I think we get it in other kinds of music, but
Mhm.
pretty incredible. Um, thank you so very, very much. I don't know if you have any other music. Do you have other music, or was that the final?
That was the last one we
Okay,
prepared.
okay, that was okay. Well, no, but thank you so much. That was really great. I just want to ask about that. I have my question that I posed to you before, but I'm hoping at some as you final we're rounding the corner here. I know some of us have to go, and we've got classes coming up. Um, if you could at least touch on or maybe recap the importance of um, the study, execution of African American music, your place in African American music. Somehow, maybe it has something to do with the way you answered my question, but I'm really particularly interested for our community, even if they are not African American and they want to maybe highlight another forgotten or a marginalized group in their own music making, how this affects you as performers, this particular subject. I know there's so many other things to think about, but this particular aspect. Um,
Well, I can say right off the bat one thing. African American music is first and foremost American music. Hello, African American. This is the story of America, and it's told from a perspective that we don't always hear, but we don't have a complete picture of what American history is like unless we're able to look at it from everyone's perspective, right? America is a really special nation, at least on paper, because we are supposed to all be free and we're supposed to all be equal and we're supposed to be this melting pot of different cultures and different ideas that all sort of have their place and have the freedom to be who and what they say they are, And so if we overlook any part of that, if we don't take a minute to listen to the stories of African Americans or Asian Americans or Latino Americans or whatever, we are missing out on the complete picture, and we're missing out on a lot of really important stories and narratives, right?
Stories, yeah.
So I think in that sense, it's important to look at the history to really to be able to take a sense of pride in who we are. Most of us are American citizens or born in America or studying in America for the time being. We're here for a chapter of our lives or whatever. But, to be able to get the full cultural experience of being an American and to really understand what that means and to be able to take pride in that means being able to look at these chapters of history that have been sort of overlooked in the past. And in that regard, Brennan and I fit right into that narrative because we are Americans. We're American citizens. We are living in America in 2020, which, as everyone knows, has been a very tumultuous chapter. Whether if it's not for one thing, it's for the other thing. There have been a lot of things coming our way as American citizens recently. And so our stories matter. And what we have to say can't be replaced, can't be substituted or supplanted with a different narrative, And so, as does all of the performers out there listening right now, all of your stories matter as well, and your contributions, whether it be a performer or a composer, they matter. And so, it's of the utmost importance and the utmost significance that we're able to tell our stories and be able to represent a perspective that otherwise would not be heard, so that others can benefit from that experience and learn from it and grow, and we can all just be better people. That's really what it comes down to. So that's my thought on that.
If I could tag on to that, I think that is also quite important because it gives us opportunities, economic opportunities here in the here and now. To perform our works, is to directly engage with us. To allow us to perform the works of others as well as ourselves, once again, gives us a direct opportunity to participate in the American economy. And that's another area that we as Americans can improve on, and that's allowing uh, people of color into the economic space, right? And the more of us that are out there in the economic space, then the less we have to talk about stereotype threats, right? The less we have to talk about feeling odd, right? Because you're the only brown person in the room making, the kind of art that you feel compelled to make, right? If we can encourage others to come into the room, right, then I think we can all feel a little more comfortable. And relaxation is comfort is one of the first things I talk about in my performance anxiety lecture. You really want to come to a relaxed space in order to reach peak performance. And so much of that, I think, has to do with being comfortable with the space, being comfortable with the art, and then being comfortable with your fellow musicians, right? Because if you know that the musicians around you have meaningfully engaged with the kind of art that inspires you, then you can have more trust, right? And then you can have ultimately better artwork, right? So I think that it's absolutely important that we feature more people of color and, just simply give more economic opportunity and otherwise to uh, people of color like Carlos and myself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Okay, we are way over our time. Well, if we have like a few, can you in a few minutes answer my question, my in the studio super bonus question about what you would have wanted to have in college in terms of a course or study or whatever program? Can you address that really quickly in under 5 minutes? And yeah, just go for it. What do you think?
Well, I personally would have liked a little bit more comprehensive instrumental music study. From where I went, there was so much focused on um, marching band and being a band director and education where I came from. There just wasn't a whole lot of focus on specific instrument technique and then what it might take to be an instrumentalist in a major ensemble, like an orchestra or maybe creating a band or something like that.
Mm, thank you. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. I think for me, the missing piece of the puzzle in school was really figuring out what comes next and having some kind of comprehensive guidance about what to do when you're this highly trained musician released into the world with no career. Like, what am I supposed to do? How do I do this now? Like, how do I make a way for myself? And like, we were required to take like a professional development sort of class, which was basically like a resume building class,
Hmm.
which mixed results. I mean, yeah, I had a nice resume when it was over with, but I still didn't know what I was supposed to do,
Uh,
as a musician. Like, how do I make a living doing this? And
yes.
just if somebody had been able to tell me, that there's so many different other avenues that are all valid to be successful as a musician or in the music industry, so much of the instrumental music focus is on being a soloist, being on, doing the recital and giving the performance and all of that sort of thing. But what do we do in the downtime? What do we do when we're not when we're waiting for that next big opportunity? Collaborating with other musicians. And I'm very fortunate that I'm a pianist because we have a multitude of opportunities to work with theater companies and to work with orchestras and to work with ballet companies and whatever else. But even then, those are opportunities I had to make for myself and find and realize that they existed. They weren't things that people told me, hey, as a pianist, you can do these sorts of things, right? So I think that was really the big missing piece of the puzzle for me that I wish I had from school. And, just the more that academia can nurture students with outlandish dreams and outlandish ideas about how music should be created and how to be engaged with. And not trying to sort of shove them into this little box of like, this is, well, you're this, so you have to do it this way. Or, you're a composer, so you need to write 12 tone. You need to write these things that are expressive and crazy and think outside of the box. Okay, but then that's not really who I am. Now I'm doing something to sort of get a grade and to fit a standard, but it's not really who I am as a musician. So that to me was another area that I would like to see more of that nurturing in academia.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I hope my applied students are here listening to that, and the rest of music majors are listening to that. So much about how you could be taking a business class, taking our entrepreneurship certificates, and thinking about how you can build a life or career in the arts as opposed to just getting a job in the arts, right?
Yes.
Building the business aspects of things and thinking about how you build outside of the box. We, by the nature of the college, we kind of have boxes, we have walls,
Right.
but we expect that you take them, see them, and build past them and break them and do all kinds of new things with them. So I love that that aspect because I think you two, Carlos and Brennan, you are doing that. You are breaking those walls and building opportunities. And so I want people to be able to find out more about you. And I'm going to share a screen again since I did all this work on this lovely little slideshow. I'm going to show it again. A
I'm
little
not
bit
mad at it.
pieces. There they are doing their thing. Carlos and Brennan, we are so, so, so grateful for you. You can go and find out more about them. carlosandbrennan.com. Brennan has an opportunity right now for you. He wanted to mention that there's some playing going on. It's a virtual concert And in order for you to get information about it, you have to give them your email address. So go to their website, and when you go there, you'll be prompted to enter your email address. You'll get information about that concert there. That's separate and away from the one that they are doing with our students here. Again, there's going to be some Mozart at the end of the semester, December 11th. We want you there to take a listen. So please check that out. That's at our regular website, crc.losrios.edu/music. The bottom of the page is a couple of different dates for events that we've got going on. So we definitely want you there. We want to thank again Carlos and Brennan. Thank you, Max Kiesner, my co-host and cohort. Next Friday is Raise Your Voice. We don't have anything this weekend because of Thanksgiving, but next Friday, Raise Your Voice is the CRC open mic. Remember to submit your materials by Thursday evening. You can again go to our website and find out about that, or any of our social media at music@CRC to find out more about that programming. We would want to feature you in that programming. So thank you, everyone who came today. And thank you again, Carlos and Brennan. We hope to see you all soon.
Our sincere pleasure. Thank you for inviting us. This is a
Absolutely.
joy.
Thank you very, very, very much. You all take care.
Gentlemen. Bye.